Alright, I'm going to demonstrate how to install the Bingo Airsoftworks G&G L85 Gearbox replacement kit for a Polar Star fusion engine. Here's the Polar Star fusion engine upper cylinder with a 3D printed lower assembly to support it. Has the full auto switch integrated into it. There's a separate bracket for the trigger switch for the L85. See both sides here. And I'll demonstrate how to remove the gearbox from the L85 and then install this system. So I'll start by setting this aside and first disassembling a G&G L85. You just want to remove the upper from the lower, and that's done by just removing this rear pin and sliding the upper forward just a little bit, and it should pop right off. When the upper comes off, there would actually be a wire harness here which has already been removed. And I'll explain that later, but we'll just set the upper aside for the moment. Now for the lower, for the airline to exit, you're going to want to drill a hole in the bottom of your lower receiver. This has been drilled out already for a grip connect, which I'll demonstrate also a little bit later, but the hole is at approximately 2 1/4 inches back from the back of the mag well. So if you put a hole right there, it should be perfectly in line with the macro line that'll be coming out of the fusion engine when it's installed. It'll drop right out there. Okay, so let's start by taking out the gearbox. You want to start by first removing the upper cylinder from the gearbox. To do that, you want to detach the spring off its little peg there, and then you want to detach this pin which holds the bolt catch lever in place, and then this comes right out. Once that's been removed, you then want to remove the pin in the back of the gun here by just lifting this out, and this should pull straight out. And now the upper cylinder should pop right off. You lift it up a little bit on the back and then slide it forward and it comes right off. Now we want to take the lower out of the gun, and this is done by removing this pin right up here at the front. You push that pin in and pull it out on this side, and now you can actually use this lever right here to lift this thing out at an angle, and out comes the entire gearbox. So you can now set this aside, and then let's look at what it takes to install the fusion engine. You'll take the kit. Let me set it down right here. I'll go ahead and detach the switch from it for now. And basically just drop this right into the gun. Goes straight down. You want your wiring to go into the side and into these two little clips that are down here. You may have to open those up with a screwdriver a little bit, but the wiring can go into the side and follow this wiring path right there. And let's make sure that's above the full auto switch. And just drop it straight down in. Once that's in place, you just reinsert the front bolt here. Now, because the solenoids are right in the way of where this lever would be, this actually is no longer used, and you don't actually have that bolt catch functioning any longer. But instead, to cover up those holes, I include some 4mm screws here that you just lightly tighten to fill these holes. And they're basically there just to cover up the hole, and then also to keep the back of the engine in place. So you just pop these in, and again, do not over tighten these because they're not meant to be tight. They're just meant to be there to cover those holes. Now once that fusion engine is in place, you're going to move on to the switch at the front. And because of the way the G&G L85 is designed, the most convenient location for a switch is right up here at the trigger lever mechanism, right at the front. So that's handled by just removing this 4mm screw that's right here, and then replacing this screw with this bracket. The bracket's been specially molded so it fills that same spot, and then it comes with a longer 4mm screw, and then you just replace that and screw that into its position. There you go. And now what happens is you Then connect the switch with this little connector here. And there you have it. That activates the switch. The full auto is activated by the switch that's down inside there. And we can test it out by hooking up an FCU and a battery here. And let's see if we can hear the gun activate. Alright, on semi-auto. You can probably hear that. And then move this to full auto. And you can hear it run that way. Okay, that's basically all it takes to install the Fusion engine. Now, I actually didn't show the grip connect being installed here, but effectively you just take a grip connect, and this is the grip connect from Redline Airsoft, and I have a special spacer for the grip connect because this bottom plate is so thin. There's this shoulder that has to be overcome right there. So the grip connect would go right into this hole here. I probably can even just install that. It's a pretty simple thing to install. To remove the engine, it's just 2 screws and a pin. Take out these 2 cosmetic screws back here. Push out this pin, and the engine just lifts right out. That's all there is to it. I'll go ahead and detach the switch up here at the front so it can cleanly come away from the gun. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and put the grip connect, which has been cut down. It's been cut down just above the O-ring. You got to be careful not to cut down this too low or you'll cut right into the O-ring. But it's cut down so there's a little bit of room above it to for any offset play that's needed. You then put the spacer down, followed by the large retaining nut. And you can probably screw this in faster from the bottom side here. And I'm not going to torque it down for this demonstration, but you can get a couple pairs of pliers and really wrench that down to get that nice and tight. To insert the Fusion engine, it's basically the same thing, just goes straight down, so the air line goes right into the grip connect. Just set it down in here, kind of line it up. Might help to have a little screwdriver to push it to the side if your line's a little bit warped over to the side. Once it goes right into the grip connect, you just push straight down. Got to get past that O-ring. There you go. Past the O-ring, falls right in. Pop in the pin. Pop in the grip connect screws. Excuse me, not the grip connect screws. The rear retaining screws. And let's go ahead and hook the switch back up. And I actually could probably hook up the air so we can hear this thing fire. Again, just test it. Oh, turn off the safety. Alright, let's go ahead and hook up an air line right here. Here's the air line. Semi-auto. Full auto. Alright, now the one last part that makes this a little bit tricky is the wire harness. You have a couple options here. You can actually just keep the wire harness, your FCU and your battery located in this area right up here in the front. There's plenty of space right up here. Alternatively, you can actually run it to the front. Now here's the one little problem. The area to run this wire harness to the front goes right underneath this bracket right here. Now on a stock gun, that's really tight to fit. I actually take out this barrel and mill this down to give it a little bit more clearance for the wire harness to run through the front here, and then you can access your battery and FCU in this area up here. Now I think you can make it work without having to mill down the barrel. If you actually just shave down a little bit of the plastic off the top and bottom of this connector, it would actually slide right in there and fit. But since I have my mill here, I just went ahead and milled that down so this wire harness can fit to the front. Again, you have 2 options: store it all back here or run it underneath, and then you have access to it up here in the front. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and just reassemble this to show you that it's pretty straightforward. You run your wire harness up through the front, and the way you reassemble it is this black bracket here goes in between these 2 brackets on this plastic fitting, so it goes straight down right in between there. And once that's seated down, you just slide it backward and then install the rear pin, and you should be good to go. Once you get that pin lined up, there it goes. Now again, the dust cover doesn't have its retaining lock any longer, but that's probably not the end of the world, not being able to have that held back. You can obviously adjust your hop up directly there. Uses a standard M4 nozzle. Everything should be perfectly aligned, so you shouldn't have any problems with it. And there's your G&G L85 with the Bingo Airsoftworks Gearbox replacement kit for the Polarstar Fusion engine. I'm going to demonstrate how you install the G&G L85 drop-in kit for the SMP and the Polarstar F1 when that becomes available. It would use the same. This is an early prototype of the bracket, but it should basically behave the same way. The only difference with the install between this and the Fusion engine is when it's installed here and you have your pin in the front, you don't need to use the two cosmetic screws on the back here, because there's actually room for the old bolt catch lever to fit through. So you just push the lever all the way through, and then you can reinstall this clip. You probably don't need this spring because it actually won't be doing anything. So you just grab it with a pair of pliers and insert this little retaining pin, and this lever now is what holds this in place. It just spins. It basically doesn't do anything. But everything else would be identical to the Fusion engine. There'd be a wire harness coming up to the front. The mini circuit board that held the wires will be inside here, but effectively exactly the same thing. Perfectly lined up SMP or F1 engine using this drop-in kit, and no longer do you need to mess with trying to make those pieces fit in a gearbox that looks like this, which is a real pain. Actually trying to get the airlines to run through all of that would be quite difficult to do. So the gearbox replacement kit should be much more simple.